Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Bison Video Blog. Along with Jeff Kolpack, I'm Izzo. We're in the final week of spring football for 2015. The annual Green and Gold game, Jeffrey, comes up on Saturday. For the first time in a few years as we have covered spring football, we actually might have a chance to see what's going to happen maybe in 2015, although Randy Hedberg said not to expect any kind of trick plays or any kind of crazy offensive schemes from the Bison coming up on Saturday. There's a ton of positions that we're going to talk about here on today's blog that will grab our attention and probably something for Bison fans to watch on Saturday. But here we are near the end of the month. What has grabbed your attention? What have you looked at this group here? As Chris Kleiman said on Saturday, we're making the transition into 2015.
What's grabbed my attention is a couple things. I think the defensive end is a position that NDSU really needs to address. Obviously, with Kyle Emanuel leaving and Mike Hardy, two huge shoes to fill, two huge positions to fill. You have some kids emerging. We talked about Jared Tuska this spring. Here's a kid who didn't play last year because he had an Achilles injury from high school, has really physically, I think, emerged, and then mentally grasped the game from going 9-man to 11-man. You also look at, you had Greg Menard coming back, and then Caleb Butler. Who's Caleb Butler? If you look him up, he's had some pretty impressive credentials in high school. He won like his conference 110-meter hurdles and the discus and the shot put. So here's a guy who maybe is emerging as somebody from out of the shadows.
Another walk-on, which is another one of this program we talked about a few weeks ago that just out of nowhere, and here's a guy much like the guy right to his right, and Brian Schatz, who was a walk-on and developed almost into an all-conference player. We'll see what Butler can do on Saturday. First, some news that we need to attend to. C.J. Smith, all-conference player for the Bison at cornerback, injured his knee earlier this week. He's out for the remainder of the spring. NDSU head coach Chris Kleiman told us earlier today that Bruce Pryatt, the Bison doctor, will look at him either today or tomorrow. It's really unknown whether he needs surgery, how long he's going to be out. Obviously, this is a big blow for a senior at corner and the amount of reps that this guy's played.
To repeat, we don't know. It could be just a twist. The head coach said it's just a twisted knee. Schatz actually hurt his knee too, but I don't know how concerned. He said they're always concerned anytime the knee is addressed, but it isn't. I don't even want to say whatever letter. We don't. So. All we know is he won't play this spring game this Saturday.
We don't know the extent of the injury. Hopefully we'll have something by Saturday. Actually, we'll know what's going on with Mr. Smith. The other big news came after the scrimmage on Saturday. We found out that junior-to-be Kerry Woods is leaving football. He's actually going to walk on to the Bison men's basketball team. Woods had a couple of kind of star-crossed years with the Bison, Jeff, at wide receiver. He had flashes of brilliance, and everyone will remember the Northern Iowa touchdown that he had a couple years ago in the corner of the end zone. And then some other games where he'd have balls that would just hit him right in the chest and he would drop. But he also had an outstanding prep career as a basketball player at Bemidji. He had several Division II offers to play basketball.
He was, I know Moorhead State really, or Minnesota State Moorhead really wanted him too for basketball. Here's a guy, though, I think he was up and down during his career. He had a great playoff performance against Coastal Carolina. It was really well needed. There's that touchdown pass that you alluded to. But you have to wonder if the emergence of Kayvon Hawkins and Darius Shepard may have played a factor in this. The Bison are pretty well decent as far as depth-wise at receiver. We think. We
just don't know what kind of production they're going to give.
Because you have Zach Vrock coming back for his final year of eligibility. You have Nate Moody, who's still out there and could still play a factor in things.
Tyler Rice, who's out there. I mean, you just don't. Eric Perkins has gotten reps at wide receiver. You're not sure what those guys can bring to the table. And you really weren't sure with Woods either.
Also lost D. Gray, too.
Correct.
So there's a couple guys that came in real heralded that never really panned
Honestly,
out.
I was going to blog about this. The 3 wide receivers part of the class of 2012 are all gone. That was D. Gray, Deshaun Warren, and now Kerry Woods. Is that concerning? There's another guy, another high attrition rate out of that class that's not with the team anymore.
Well, it's concerning because every time you have these kind of situations on signing day, I remember that. These are the next 3 guys. These guys are it. D. Gray, he's big, fast, and we overlooked him as a steal. Deshaun Warren had a knee injury, but boy, he's really athletic. And then Kerry Woods, we saw some great tape and video highlights of him.
I saw it in person,
down at the Metrodome. And you look at that and you go, wow, this guy is the next big thing too.
And that's kind of the warning for the guys that are coming in, the impact of the class of 2015, or the guys that redshirted last year. You just never really know what's going to happen with there. Let's talk briefly about going to basketball. Have you seen this happen before? We've seen guys that have played basketball that maybe try football, but maybe not the other way around, that this is going to happen. Last I can remember is Jeremiah Wurzbacher, but his career was done it in football when he's trying to play basketball with the Bison.
Not often. I remember a guy named Craig Amon, who was a basketball guard who went to play football after his basketball eligibility was used up. You see that every once in a while. You see athletes that'll do 4 years in one sport and then they were really good at something else and then give it a shot their 5th year of eligibility. It's a different body. You know, the basketball body is different than the football body. So he's going to have to spend this spring, I think, changing his body a little bit, I would guess, because it's a different agility. There are different drills. It's just different altogether.
Another guy leaving the team is defensive end Alex Hahn, who this time last year, the Bison coaching staff was lauding like he's going to get some definite reps at defensive end. We like what he can bring to the table athletically. But as you mentioned, 2 guys, Tuska and Butler, passed him on the depth chart, and he's kind of the odd man out.
And you have Stanley Jones hanging out there too. So you have some guys there that are really pushing it. And James Gates is another guy, outside linebacker who probably gave it up because, there's some guys like Levi Jordan and Dan Marlette who are probably younger, a year younger than probably passed him in the depth chart, and he just saw the writing on the wall. That's the thought out there anyway.
You look at the classes of the first playoff runs or the championship runs of 11 and 12, the attrition rate there is super high, and you just wonder what NDSU did to change its recruiting, if they changed its recruiting to attack that, because the 2011 and 2012 classes do not have many guys left. We're talking single digits now.
We are, and that's not good.
No.
That's not good. It's hard to sustain a title running program. You're not going to win 8 titles in a row doing that, right?
What makes it all the more remarkable, they won 4 considering the guys they lost out of those 2 classes, though.
Well, it puts the pressure on this class and the class coming in to really contribute right away.
All right, a couple other position battles we're looking at. Kicker is one we haven't had to talk about over the last 4 years, obviously with Adam Keller's great success and Ryan Jastrin the year before that. But that's a real battle, one that Chris Kleiman says is going to go into the fall. There's nothing going to be decided come Saturday.
We've seen a little glimpses, I think, at practice at the end. I don't think the coaches are particularly pleased right now with the way it's shaping up. Tom Barneson obviously hasn't grasped that position like maybe they hoped. And Ben LeCompte, he's a great punter, and I've seen him boot a couple on the kickoff or on the field goal situation. He's got a leg too. So this is going to go into the fall. They have Cam Peterson, a preferred walk-on coming in who will get a shot to compete for it.
What do you think? Can he do both? Can LeCompte? That's a ton of stress on the leg in a game. If let's say you have 6 punts in a game, and he's also got to worry about field goals,
kicking off, and
you'd think one of those jobs be taken away. That he wouldn't be kicking off if he's going to be kicking field goals and extra points.
You see it every once in a while. Have you rarely seen it? Have you seen it effectively though?
That's a good question, and that's the point going forward. If the Montana game is close, and Chris Kleiman told us this, he'd have no hesitation putting number 19 in there to kick either an extra point or a field goal.
Is very strong mentally. He's a mentally strong player. He's been through the ringer. Right now, I think he has the edge. It's just
got to have the
feeling.
inside track. I would agree with you there. Quarterback is obviously going to get a lot of attention on Saturday. We all know about number 11, but it's the backup race that also I don't think it's going to be decided on Saturday, but somebody can make a really good case to be the backup either between Cole Davis, and everyone, I guess, assumed Easton Stick might be the guy, but Davis has had a really nice spring.
Davis has really upped his game, I think, this spring, and talking to the quarterback coach and both Chris Kleiman, that he's not going to hand it to Easton Stick, and you wouldn't expect him to. With Derek McGinnis out of the picture, now it's down to those 2 guys. The word I'm getting is once in a while this guy will be ahead, and then this guy will come back and be ahead. And so, but I think they need to decide probably a couple weeks before Montana, because you need that backup guy to have the reps with the first team every once in a while, just in case the dreadful would happen and Carson would go down.
Randy Hedberg told us, though, he would have no doubt right now that he's at the point where one of these guys could come in and play a game, where I don't believe they were at that point last season if Wentz got hurt, that either if Davis or Stick got into the game, they would feel comfortable with them running the offense.
And both are athletic enough, too.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really going to come down to this, not only this scrimmage, but really the first 2 weeks of next fall.
You have to also probably think Cole Davis has heard a ton about Easton Stick. Say, hey, don't forget about me, that I was an all-state player out of Missouri.
If he's any kind of competitor, absolutely.
Right. He's got the frame. He's got a solid arm. He played all the backup snaps, obviously, last year when Wentz came out of a game. Davis was the first guy in, and granted, he didn't throw a ton, but he's got a good arm on. Obviously, all the attention on Stick.
Yeah, we haven't seen a whole practice, so
that's why Saturday is going to be really interesting.
Saturday's going to be huge. If you're a fan, and if nothing else, just pay attention to the backup quarterbacks.
I also look at wide receiver. You mentioned Hawkins and Shepard. I think it's maybe a coming out party for them to say we're ready for the prime time. Granted, it's not the defenses of the Missouri Valley they're going to see on Saturday, but this is a chance for them to say they're ready for the big time.
And what I want to see is, okay, who's getting open out there? Who's getting open? Because there's so many times last year where Carson would have all day to throw. and yet nobody would get open. And that's going to be the key, because the offensive line is coming back pretty well intact. And you have a senior quarterback who's pretty good. Now can the receivers get open?
Now they're facing some backup corners that we don't know all that much about. Some redshirt freshmen, some sophomores. Jalen Allison is going to get a lot of reps. We know about Jordan Champion. Trey Dempsey has moved over to safety. What are you looking at out of the secondary on Saturday?
Well, I'm looking to see, okay, how are they going to handle the physical nature of the sport? You know, it's still a physical defense. You got to be able to run support. You're not going to see a lot of looks, you know, and they're not going to throw a lot of nickel in there. They're not going to throw anything that Bob Stitt of Montana is going to go, oh, hey, thanks, appreciate that.
Lance Dunn's the other guy I want to see on Saturday as well.
I want to see how fast he is. I really
Yes,
do.
as he's the redshirt freshman at running back, going along with Chase Morlock and King Frazier. Full day of coverage coming up on Saturday. Kolpack and Izzo will start at 9 to 11 Saturday morning on 970 WDAY. We'll be back with our pregame show as well before the game, which gets going at 1:30, and then back postgame to wrap it up as 2015 spring football set to go and wrap up at NDSU.